Welcome to Corpstruction, a show about the missions, activities, and employees of the Tulsa District U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. February 20th through February 26th is Engineers Week, and so we're interviewing our engineers to learn more about who they are. Today we have Ean Bonjour. Ean works in our engineering and construction branch in the infrastructure support section. Welcome to the show, Ean.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from originally again?
I'm from Stillwater, Oklahoma originally. Grew up there and then stuck around to go to school at OSU.
Okay. And when did you know you wanted to be an engineer?
Pretty early on, I was always, tinkering with stuff as a kid, taking stuff apart. And so as I got into high school, I was taking some of the more like the AP classes, different sciences and stuff. And I enjoyed learning that technical side of things. And so when it came time to go to college, I knew I wanted to do something in engineering. And I actually started out as a mechanical engineer for the first almost year and a half of school. And it was actually thermodynamics that kind of helped me decide that maybe a mechanical engineer wasn't my cup of tea. And I really liked the more physical, the concrete part of the pun, but just that hard structures and just statics. I enjoyed those classes. And so I made the change over to civil engineering, and I've really enjoyed all of it from there.
With the people who were in your program, did you find that theme of tinkering with things or taking things apart was pretty common among the other students or even the people you work with? Did you see that a lot?
Yeah, that was, I think, a fairly common thing. I really enjoy the hands-on side of things too. And so I think that translates very well into that kind of, especially for civil engineer, where you have the structures and being able to picture things and build things. And it just works really well with the way my mind works. And I feel like that is fairly common, I would say, of structural engineers.
Now, you went to OSU, and did you come to work here for the Corps immediately after that?
Yes, I did. So it was my senior year of college. I wasn't sure where I was going to work. I was looking mainly in Oklahoma City and Tulsa just to stay kind of close. And then it was the career fair. I was walking around, and I had my list of 3 or 4 different companies. I was like, all right, I've looked into these people. I'm interested in what they do. And I walk in, and I had just come up the escalator. I was in Gallagher Arena. Just come up the escalator, and you're always a little nervous. And somebody kind of taps me on the shoulder, and we have our name tags that say our name and our degree and what year we are. And someone was like, "Hey, I see you're a civil engineer. You graduating in May." And I was like, "Yeah, you want to come talk to us?" And it was someone from the Corps, and so I was like, "Sure." So the Corps, honestly, they weren't on my list. I didn't know much about them. I knew that all the lakes were, not all the lakes, but I knew they operated a bunch of the lakes and had engineers, but that was kind of the extent of my knowledge. And so talked with them at the career fair, gave them my resume, and then it was really pretty quick. By the end of the week, I had a phone interview and was hired on shortly thereafter as part of the intern program. So it was a full-time position, but I spent the first 2 years with the Corps rotating through all the different groups within the engineering department, and kind of got to learn a little bit about what each of the groups do, and just got to experience a lot of different things.
So you're a structural engineer, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Well, so my degree is just civil engineer, but I kind of focused my classes towards the structures, and then since working with the Corps, all my focus has been on the structures.
Okay. So that's kind of the discipline that you've kind of focused on, at least as of late, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what year was that when you came to work for the Corps?
That would have been 3.5 years ago, so 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're still at the front end of your career.
Yeah. Yep.
So what do you do right now in the infrastructure support section?
So I do all the hydraulic steel structures inspections, and so I got certified right when I joined the Corps to use rope access, and so it's a technique that we use to inspect a lot of our tainer gates and into our wet wells, where it's kind of similar to rappelling, but you can go up and down all in a two-rope system. And so I got plugged into that pretty early, and have kind of taken over that side of the inspection program. So I work on scheduling those and then performing the inspections and then writing those reports. And then another role I do is with the PI and PA, which is periodic inspection and periodic assessment, that each of our dams go through every 5 years. I go on all those site visits and then help write some of the Chapter 3, especially, and just go into kind of in detail over all of the structural aspects of the dam. So from the gates to the gallery to just the concrete in general and any of the pertinent structures.
How long does it take to do an inspection or assessment of a dam? I mean, just the visual and being there at the structure.
So during either the PI is the main site visit. It depends on the structure, but we normally take about 2, maybe 3 days, depending on which structure it is and how big it is. And part of that, the inspection process, we'll walk the entire dam, the entire embankment, both upstream and downstream side. We'll walk through the galleries if there are galleries at that structure. Depending upon the place, we'll walk up the conduit if there is one. And so that's a 2-day process. But ahead of those inspections, that's where we'll do like the tainer gate inspection. We typically will try to do about 6 months before that big periodic inspection is due, just because it takes, again, it depends on the size of the structure, but we can normally do, 2 people can do about 4 tainer gates in a day. And so anywhere from 1 day to, at Fort Gibson, it took a full week and we had 6 people inspecting the tainer gates, where we're crawling around over, within an arm's distance of every aspect of the gate.
Yeah, those are big gates, and there's a lot of them at Fort Gibson.
Yeah,
right?
Fort Gibson has 30 gates. It's our largest project.
I think they're like 20 by 35 or something, right? Or something. Maybe it's 35 by 50. I don't know. But.
Yeah, they're all right in that size. Hugo are our tallest gates at 50 foot tall, but they're all around that, anywhere from 25 foot tall to about 50 foot tall.
And there's about, like 6 gates or 8 gates at Hugo? Are there even that many?
I think there's 4 gates at
4
Hugo.
gates?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they've got a relatively, relatively speaking, their release amount is
it's a little bit
small,
yeah.
especially compared to like a Fort Gibson or
so
Fowler.
A lot narrower of a spillway, but like I said, they're the tallest gates we have, and so they actually have 4 main girders, whereas most of ours have either 2 or 3.
What's the most interesting part of your work? What are you finding is the most interesting part of it?
Well, I think, as soon as I graduated, I joined on and started all the rotations, and just getting to see a different aspect of each group and what they do. But I think the most interesting part to me is how much time I get to spend in the field doing hands-on inspection work. And the fact that I get paid to hang from ropes and climb over tainer gates, it's really enjoyable from my side. I like being outdoors. I like being active. And I guess if I really would have stopped and thought about it when I was in college, I knew that things had to be inspected and that required somebody going on site hands-on, but I guess I am more imagined doing a lot more math and hard calculations, and really I mainly do inspection work and writing reports and things of that nature. Sometimes I do some calculations, but a lot of it is more the report writing and inspections.
What, did you do any rappelling before you came to work for the Corps?
No, I didn't. I'd gone just rock climbing indoors at Climb Tulsa a couple of times, but nothing like this. Completely different.
So did you go to like a class or something, or did you just learn it on the job? Do you do like a Swiss seat or whatever? Or
no, so it's I went to a week-long course It was the first month of being with the Corps. I had talked to David Jarvis, and he was like, "Yeah, if you like, being active and outdoors, and this sounds interesting to you," he was like, "Look at this YouTube video. Like, does that look like something that you'd be interested in?" And I was like, "Yeah, it looks like a ton of fun." And so, a couple weeks later, I was at a training course put on by Ropeworks and the Society of Professional Rope Access Technicians. It was in Biddeford, Maine, and so I was at a class it was 4 days of hands-on learning, doing the activities, and then the fifth day was the test. And so it took about 4 hours of physical testing, of making sure you know all your skills. There's also a written portion where you have to know like the theories kind of behind why your tools work the way they do, and how to keep yourself safe, and like your clearance distances, and like where your devices should be positioned just to keep you safe on the job site.
Properly inspecting your ropes and
Exactly.
stuff.
Inspecting your ropes, inspecting your equipment.
Did you do knots?
Yep. Did some knots, learned all those. Luckily, David Jarvis had taught me we mainly use 4 basic knots. And so he had taught me those beforehand, just so I was familiar with those, just because there are so many new techniques and things that you're learning. He was like, if you can get just these 4 knots down before going, like that kind of gives you a little bit of a step ahead.
Did it?
Yeah, and it really did. Because there was, I think, 5 other people in that class with me, and I think 1 or 2 of them they were recertifying, and so they knew how to do everything. But of the new people going in as a level 1, I think I was a little bit ahead just in knowing those knots. As simple as it sounds, yeah.
Now, you don't have a problem with heights at all, I take it? Then.
Yeah, no problem with heights. And so I just recertified this summer as a level 2. And so as a level 2, you learn a few new techniques, and you start building towards every job site has to have a level 3 overseeing the project and running the overall safety. And so I think that's kind of the goal ultimately, is to get my level 3 certification and be able to run that job site. Because right now in the Corps of Engineers nationwide, I don't believe we have any level 3s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we always have to contract that out, or we've been working with the Bureau of Reclamation recently to have them assist.
I don't think I've ever seen you guys out there rappelling. When so now do you do like walking along the Tainer Gate? You're like walking on the Tainer Gate,
Yeah,
like
So typically we set up our anchorage system up on the top using the hoist equipment, just because that's all huge bomb proof. There's always a lot of places to anchor off of, and then from the machinery platforms we drop over that railing, and typically we'll drop to that top girder, and we'll kind of walk along the top girder and then back into suspension and drop down and kind of pull yourself along out the strut arms, and just slowly kind of work your way kind of node to node each of the bracing points where they tie in. And then when you get to the next girder, you're still attached to the system, but you can kind of walk along the girder. And yeah.
So do you guys use like a rappelling belt or seat or whatever, as opposed to like doing the rope seat, or how do you?
So it's a full body harness.
Yeah. Harness.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's really awesome. I had no idea that we were even doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it. That's weird. In like 6 years, 6 or 7 years, I hadn't seen that.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, you've kind of answered like my first 4 questions just like that. So, what would you say is like some misconceptions that people have about engineering, especially what you do?
Yeah, I think people just assume engineers sit behind the computer all day, running spreadsheets and punching numbers in, or using 3D modeling software, and just are stuck behind the computer. But like I've said, a lot of my time is spent either outdoors, doing the inspection, and then yes, there's always going to be that report writing portion of it. There's no way to get around that. You can do as many inspections as you want, but if no end product is generated, that inspection information dies there where it can't be passed on unless you get it written down on paper and in visual pictures. We take probably, I would say, at least 80 to 120 photos of every gate when we're doing a Tanner gate inspection. So, I mean, we don't document every tiny little flaw, but I mean, we document it heavily.
Yeah, you said 6 people at Gibson took
Mhm.
about, what, a week? Is that what
Yeah.
you said?
Yeah.
Like the full 7 days or like 5 days? Like
5 days.
5
Yeah.
days,
Yeah.
And I mean, there's like 30, I think 30
Mhm.
gates or
30
40
gates,
gates or
yeah.
so out
30.
there. So, yeah, okay, so 30 gates. So
Mhm.
you guys go over each of those gates with a pretty thorough look.
Yeah, I mean, we carry with us like a wire brush, like a paint scraper, tape measure, and a hammer. Typically, are the tools that we have on our toolkit. And so yeah, if you see some corrosion, you're taking that wire brush out and you're scraping it away, or you're taking the paint scraper and removing any. We get a lot of bird droppings and
Yeah.
dirt and debris, and so you have to clean that area. That way you can see the metal underneath and see, is this weld cracked? Is it not? And I mean, for the most part, they're not, which is great.
Now, did you inspect the Robert S. Kerr gates before we started that project to rehabilitate those gates?
Yeah, so that's I've gone down there a couple of times, either myself or David Jarvis. That's who I work the most closely with. We kind of have, I mean, similar roles where we're doing a lot of these inspections, and so I've gone down a number of times to both Weber's and Kerr as the contractors get to the next stage. They've marked up on the gate, okay, these are the members that meet the criteria laid out in the specs to be replaced or repaired. And so they bring us in and we'll look through and say, I know this isn't quite the 1/4 inch of section loss, but if we extend this up another foot, that'll make your job welding easier because it takes you out of a crunched over, bent over position, and we'll ultimately get a better quality product out of it by adding that foot. And in the grand scheme of things, a foot of extra metal is pretty negligible. And so if it means we get a better quality weld and a better quality product, that's well worth it.
So the gates are one area that you're looking at. What other areas of structures are you all focused on?
So I've talked mainly about Tanner Gate so far, but
and just for people who don't know, the Tanner Gate is essentially a floodgate. I mean, that's commonly referred to as a floodgate, but we call it a Tanner Gate.
Or a radial arm gate is also something that they commonly get called. They're a portion of a cylinder, basically. So you have that radial skin plate that is attached back to a trunnion pin with strut arms. But we also look at slide gates, sluice gates.
For conduits,
yeah. And the conduit itself, we'll walk up the conduit looking at all of the joints in the conduit. I mean, they're all going to have a little bit of seepage here and there, but we have to inspect it, make sure that amount of seepage hasn't changed from 5 years ago when it was looked at last. We also inspect whenever operations dewaters still in basins. We'll assist them in inspecting the floor and around the baffle blocks and things of that nature.
When you're inspecting a structure that has a conduit, like say Texoma or what's the one? Is it Fall River has a conduit? I think in Kansas has.
There's quite a few. There's quite a few. Yeah.
I mean,
Pat Mays is one we did just a few months ago.
That's such a small conduit, though,
it is,
right? Like, so you can't climb it. You climb in there?
So it's about, I want to say it's 7.5 foot diameter.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem that big,
right? Yeah. We pulled up.
You can walk in there.
Yeah, you can walk. You can walk
like
standing up, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about 7.5 foot. But yeah, when we pulled up, one of the other guys on the periodic inspection was like, "Oh, there's no way we can do that, right? Are we gonna crawl up that?" And I was like, "No, it's the as-built show it 7.5 foot." And then once you walk up to the structure, like, oh yeah, it's bigger than it looked from farther away. Yeah.
Like I have a memory of it from one of the floods. Well, from 15, and my memory of it seems to be that it was like really small. But I may be even getting it confused with Hayburn. in Spalpa. That's I don't think that's a 7-foot. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I don't know right off the top.
It seems a lot smaller to me, but so you walk in there. Is there one that is more cramped that you've had to crawl through? Are there any that you've had to crawl through?
None so far that I've had to do. Yeah, right off, I can't think of any smaller than about 7-foot diameter. That's not saying that we don't have any, but
right.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what that experience is like, knowing that there's all that water and weight? I mean, obviously it's there, it's safe. I mean, does it ever? Do you ever feel anything like a little creeped out about being in that kind of an environment?
I think probably the strangest feeling is in the powerhouses. So we'll do inspections of the penstocks, and we don't do the turbine inspections.
Right.
We leave that to the hydropower guys because I mean they're in and around it every day. But some of the gates that we look at, the easiest way to access them is going in through the penstocks, climbing up. So Broken Bows, it's about, I want to say it's just over 1,000 feet from where you enter to walk upstream, and it's about I want to say it's about 20-foot diameter conduit, and it's at an 11 or 12% slope, and so it's really, really challenging to walk up, which you wouldn't think.
So you're going up, because you're entering from the release side or whatever, or at least
the
from
powerhouse,
the powerhouse side. So you're walking up to the lake.
Yeah, and you're like, you look at it on the as-built, you're like, oh, 11, 12%, that's not that bad. But there's an inch or two of water flowing at your feet and algae, and it's
slippery,
super slick. And so we tried, not all of our group made it up. You'd make it up halfway and you'd slip and you'd slide a couple 100 feet down this water slide, basically.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, it was a ton of fun. But like,
wait, is it concrete? It's concrete, right?
It's steel lined.
Is it steel? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But it's not like a tin horn. I mean, it doesn't have those ridges, right?
Yeah,
it's
perfectly
just
smooth.
Smooth. Okay.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it turns into a giant water slide, which, like I said, it's a lot of fun, but it was challenging to get up. I mean, I think 2 or 3 of the people that had gone with us, a couple of people from ops, and just weren't able to make it up, or a couple didn't try because they saw all of us.
They're like, heck
getting
no.
up and sliding. Yeah, and really,
nobody's got time for that.
Yeah, as long as either myself or David Jarvis made it up, because we were the 2 structurals that were there to inspect, and Mallory Harvey was also with us. As long as one of us made it up to do the inspection, and one of the ops guys just so we could ask questions, that's who really needed to make it up. But I mean, everybody wanted to see it. But that was probably when you're in those powerhouses and you realize, like, I'm underground in a giant tunnel, and there's one gate ahead of me holding back, 100 foot ahead. It's like,
right.
Yeah, this is a little creepy, and the only light you have is your headlamp.
Right.
And so, there's 3 or 4 streams of light from, the other people with you. But yeah, it's just a different experience for sure.
Yeah. Did you be honest? Did you take a slide intentionally?
Not intentionally, but I mean, so after we made it up and looked at the head gates, the easiest way down is to slide. I mean, there's no walking down, and so I guess that was an intentional slide down. Yeah.
What? I bet that was sort of fun at the end.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
yeah. I mean, we're in full chest waders,
right?
Because when you enter, you walk past the butterfly valve, and it got to probably about waist deep water before it shallowed back out, and so it was a lot of fun. You have water splashing up around you, and it's, virtually pitch black. It's just, your headlamp in this massive tunnel doesn't make a huge difference except for right directly in front of you. But
have you repelled the gates over at Tenkiller?
Yeah,
on that spillway.
We've done.
That's pretty crazy, isn't it? Like the view.
Yeah, so we did that. That was one of my first inspections with rope access, and it was in the fall. And we also did the bridge inspection using rope access. They have beam rollers, and I have a fantastic photo. It's one of my favorite photos. It's me and David Jarvis hanging from the beam rollers on the bridge, looking downstream, and you have all the fall colors behind, and
Oh, wow.
it's a beautiful, beautiful setting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that photo, though. Did you take it with your camera? I mean,
Uh,
your phone, I mean?
Somebody on the catwalk took it. Well,
Okay.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I just had no idea we were even doing stuff like that. Like I've seen the sniffer do the bridge inspections.
Yeah. Yeah. The snooper truck. Yes.
But I hadn't been aware about the rappelling and everything. That's amazing.
Yeah. I think David Jarvis started about probably close to 6 years ago doing
Mhm.
it. And then has had a couple other people come and help and get certified. And then we've used Philadelphia District has a team and St. Louis has a team. And so we've brought them in on different projects to help.
Now, how many people do we have who are certified to rappel, to do that type, the rope stuff?
So it'd be David Jarvis, myself, Jared Brewer, and Mark Harvey.
Okay.
And I think,
4.
yeah, just the four of us. Captain Knowles
Oh, I had no idea. Yeah.
did do it with us before he got his promotion and
Right.
moved on. And then there's been a
Too
couple.
good for that. He's
Yeah.
too good for that rappelling stuff.
Yeah, there's been a couple other active duty people that have come and been certified for a little bit, and then they have to move on, and so yeah. But there's mainly just the four of us that do those inspections.
And how many do you all do in a year, roughly?
So it depends on the year, but about 4 or 5 a year, just depending on the periodic inspection calendar. But yeah, about 4. So we typically do 2 in the spring and 2 in the fall because you want to do it when you can't do it really in the summer when the gates are blazing hot. It
Right.
just becomes challenging to maneuver around, and no one wants to climb when it's icy and cold. My first inspection was at Marion Spillway, and it rained on us the entire time we were inspecting. Anywhere from, it went from a light rain at the start to, a pretty solid, not downpour, but it was raining. We were soaked
Yeah.
all the way through, and it was myself and David Jarvis did those 3 gates in one day, soaking wet. And
Yeah, you were probably ready. Like, we're not coming back here tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, like,
we want to
get this done,
now.
go back to the hotel, take a night, and then
drive home.
Yeah.
What how does weather impact the ropes and the equipment?
Yeah, so when the ropes get wet, you do have a little bit more stretch. We use static rope, so it's different than what you'd use for like rock climbing. Those are dynamic ropes, and you want that stretch when you're like rock climbing. That way, if you take a fall, that absorbs a lot of your impact. But we use static rope because when we're climbing up on the rope, it goes through a chest ascender and a hand ascender, and you want as little stretch as possible there, just because as you climb up, you bounce just a little bit, and so with a dynamic rope, you lose a lot of the energy ends up going into the rope instead of into you moving up and down. But when they get wet, they stretch a little bit, and then the steel structure gets slick, and so you really have to trust your system and wait into the system more than walking on the gate itself.
Do you have to have like a handbrake behind you all the time? Like,
so whenever you're descending, it runs through an ID, and that's your main lowering device.
Okay.
And so yeah, you always have a hand on the brake end of that rope when you're descending.
But you don't have to have it behind you necessarily.
No, because it's a closed system where it has a smooth cam that pinches the rope, and you have the handle, and as you open the handle more, you can go a little faster. But if you let go of that handle, it closes and stops you from going. So if you were to slip, it would automatically catch you.
Have you ever been in a situation where you felt a little bit nervous, aside from like where you were on a job, like doing an inspection, and you're like, was it all It's pretty safe, huh?
Yeah, it's all very, very safe. Since we run the 2-rope system, you're always on a main line, and then you have a backup device. So if anything were to happen to your main line, your backup device would catch you. And so there's never been a moment where I was scared from that aspect. At 10 killer, there was quite a few wasps on the gates,
Oh
and so
yeah.
like I mean there's the little bit of fear there, like okay, you drop over this edge and you accidentally kick a wasp nest. We have cans of spray with us when we did that one, but it was like
Yeah.
the quickest way down is, I mean, just descend to the deck. And luckily at 10 killer, you can walk on the spillway
Mhm.
because it's dry most of the time. And so like there was an escape plan if we got into wasp, but that's really the only thing I can think of that was kind of um, a little bit frightening.
Now, are you also doing the embankment inspections and walking the?
So, yeah, I joined the PI team when we do that, just because we stick as a group. But the geotechs and geologists kind of lead that. But um, I mean, I've gone through dam safety training and I've gone on enough of them that I know what I'm looking for when I'm walking the embankment and the riprap that I can help just be an extra set of eyes. But that's kind of someone else's specialty.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you guys pretty much specialize in the concrete or the steel and
steel and concrete.
concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also like you brought up earlier, we assist construction in doing those type of inspections in the infrastructure support section that I'm part of. Jarvis has been very involved with the Eufaula Bridge replacement
Hmm.
and going down and providing inspections when they need it, and kind of helping answer all of the RFIs that come in on the structure side of that.
Have you gone down there recently to the Eufaula
Um,
Bridge work project?
It's been a little while since I've been there. I was able to go down for one of the night placements of the ultra high performance concrete, and then I think I've been back one time since then. So I've seen it with all of the deck panels on, and so I mean, for the most part, it really looks like a bridge the last time I saw it. Whereas in the early stages, there's catwalks were up, but no structure above it.
Yeah, I went the first night. I
Mm,
think it was
okay.
the first night pour they
Mhm.
had, and I guess they're pretty much done pouring. Or
Yeah, by now they're done. They're done
okay,
with everything because I think I went to the second to last night pour,
okay.
and that's been a couple months ago. So
Oh
yeah,
wow.
yeah, they got
Yeah,
it all wrapped up.
that stuff it's really amazing how just I don't know, just what that stuff is able to do in terms of its strength and
Yeah, and it looks like when they're pouring it, it looks nothing like traditional concrete.
no,
It looks more like a pancake
yeah,
batter.
batter.
Yeah,
That's how, yeah.
thick and kind of gloopy. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not a technical
Yeah.
word, but
Yeah, and they've got all those I mean, you see
the steel
the steel
fibers.
fibers. It's
Hmm.
just I mean, wow.
Yeah,
Um yeah, that's an amazing project. It's amazing what they're doing with the, looking at how they what's the term they use? They um how they basically um the panels to
bond together.
bond.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. There's another word I was looking for, and I can't think of what it is offhand. But
yeah, and I
yeah,
think this is the largest use of the ultra high performance concrete in Oklahoma. I know it's been used in the same type of application in the Northeast a little bit, but in Oklahoma, that's the largest and first use of this type, where they're using it to bond the panels together.
will how long will it be once that project's finished before you guys go inspect it? Will you help out with the final inspection for that before it's released? Or
So we have a couple people in our group that are on the bridge side. So we have a bridge program manager, and so that group will kind of inspect that um, as a final inspection once the contractor has said, all right, we're done. They'll go out and inspect and make a punch list of all the any little outstanding items.
what uh what what advice would you have for someone who's right out of college or just finished their engineering degree? What advice would you have for them as far as determining what they want to do with engineering
Um,
or where they want to work or go?
yeah, and then that's part of the reason I picked to join the Corps is because I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, and so, after hearing about the intern program where you rotated groups, I was like, "It's a really good idea," 'cause, I mean, I got exposure to all the different groups and got to see the military design side, I got to see the civil work side, I got to see more of this inspection side. Um, I did a few months at the construction office. I did a few months in operations, and so just getting to see all those different sides of things was really nice to help me determine like, I didn't love that aspect of this group, but I really enjoyed this, and so it was almost like in that first 2 years, I had 5 or 6 different jobs all within the core, and so that's what drew me to the core and helped me decide, "Yeah, this is where I wanna work," and then knowing that there's opportunity for a lot of, internal movement and even, I mean, to other districts. I mean, you see all the time job postings coming out, um, and so just having that flexibility and that really helped me determine that I wanted to be part of the infrastructure group and do a lot of inspection work.
Was that was that an eye opener about just how much variety of I mean, you're working in infrastructure right
Mhm.
now and you're doing inspections, but if they needed you to do a detail somewhere else, they could ask you to go work over at dam safety or
Mhm.
somewhere else, and you could be doing something, you're working on a project delivery team. And
Right.
is that, or have you done any project delivery team work yet? Or
So I've done some like reviews of like they're doing a design for 10 Killers main spillway Tanner Gate rehab, and so reviewing those, and then I assisted with an IES, which is a issue evaluation study down at Denison. Um, so it went through the SQRA, which is a semi-quantitative risk analysis to determine, you know, how much risk does this dam have and what can we tolerate. And so I was able to assist in analyzing the spillway, the auxiliary spillway at Denison to see the stability of the monoliths there. And so I have done some, like, actual what most people think of actual engineering and calculations, and so I was able to do that analysis, and that was nice because it was different than, out inspecting. I mean, I love inspecting, but it was nice to resharpen those tools of, like, running numbers.
now you said you have to pretty much schedule your dam inspections for you want to do them in the fall where it's just cool enough so that the gates aren't too hot.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's also weather stuff too with like
Yeah.
what rain and
Mhm.
there's more it's more you're more likely to get rain at different times of the year. So
Yeah.
you do most of those in the fall and you have like what is your window for completing your inspections each year?
So for the rope access inspections, we really focus on later in the fall or early in the spring,
Okay.
which we always schedule at least one extra day of. Yeah, we think it's going to take 3 days, but we're going to book 4 days because you never know with rain or if the gates are in really bad shape, they take a little longer to inspect, just because you're taking a lot more photos and you're making more notes and detailed, um, like measurements of, oh, there's section loss or pitting or more cracks. Which, I mean, we don't see many cracks. We see a lot of corrosion just because structures are in water all the time. They're going to corrode, and so we always try to build in some extra buffer time.
Does it typically take about a day to do a gate to or a day? Can you get like two done in a day typically or just
So we typically will pair up in two people per like little team, and two people can do three, maybe four gates if they're hustling and the gates are in good quality, and um, it just goes quicker if they're in good shape and they're clean. That makes a big difference um, if like the operations guys can power wash the gates, even a month or two ahead of us. That really helps um, the inspection go quicker.
yeah, because the bird stuff just I mean, it can get
It
ridiculous, right?
Yeah, it gets
Especially
bad.
during cormorant season, right?
Yeah, it can get real bad, and I mean, to do the inspection, you have to be able to see the steel, so you have to spend that time of
Scraping
scraping
it
and
off.
brushing it away. Yeah.
Well, so when you have a gate with a conduit,
Mhm,
or a conduit with a gate, I guess,
mhm.
So like say Denison or even Pat Mays.
Mhm.
Well, Pat Mays has that open.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, they've got that morning glory thing.
Mhm,
So if it gets to a certain level, it comes out. But like Denison, where you can open it and close
mhm,
it, how do you how do you inspect the lakeside portion of the conduit? Obviously, you can inspect the side that's. How do
mhm.
you inspect the other side?
So, the conduit, they'll use, an ROV, a remote operated vehicle, which is like a little remote control mini submarine
Oh,
to
okay.
look at the upstream side of the structure, but I mean, in most places, you'll have, um, multiple gates. You'll have, like, an emergency gate and then a service gate,
Uh-huh.
and so you can set the emergency gate and pull the, operational gate all the way out and look at
Oh.
upstream and downstream side, and then you can put that one in place and pull the emergency gate up and look all around it.
Oh,
And
okay.
so there'll just be a kind of a chamber in between that stays watered. And so like of the structure, yeah, there is a little bit of that concrete that on the upstream side that you can never see in the dry, but that's what the ROVs can be used for.
So those are remotely piloted. They're not. You're not down there. A person's not down there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're operated from the surface, and the infrastructure branch just either they just got one or they're in the process of getting one to use in house because it had been contracted out, and so we're developing that capability in house and just bring more work in house.
When you're in a conduit, is there you don't have to worry about the bends or anything like that, do you? Is there any pressure from.
No, because
Okay.
yeah, everything we do is in the dry.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, Ian, what have I not asked you that you were maybe hoping or thinking that I might ask you
Man,
before we sat down for this interview? Like, what were you expecting me to ask you or hoping I would ask you that I haven't asked you today?
right off, I can't really think of anything. I think we've covered a majority of a majority of what my day-to-day life looks like in inspecting and writing reports and I mean, looking through photos of old reports and before a PI or a PA, you spend a lot of time, looking at the previous year's reports and saying, okay, they noted, some seepage at this location. We need to check out and make sure that it hasn't changed, or if it has changed, what else has changed? What are other like influence factors that could have made that change? Is the pool, last year they inspected and the pool was down 5 foot below normal, and this year we're into the flood pool, and so like you have to look at all those different things, and we're looking at construction photos when we do a periodic assessment. We'll spend a
From when
week.
when the dams were constructed?
Yeah. So
Really? And you can pick up stuff just at looking at those?
Yeah, so for the periodic assessment, which is conducted every 10 years, we'll bring in one person at least from each discipline. So me from structures, and then a geotech or two, a geologist or two, and we all get together in a room and brainstorm probable failure modes.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we spend about a week, a full week, coming up with ways that we think it could fail, based on if they've seen seepage. It said, okay, there could be backwards erosion piping in this area. There could be a flaw in where the closure section is back from original construction, and so it does take looking at those original photos to see, okay, they did use a sheep's foot roller, and we can see that that's on site, and um, we know that they excavated this out to rock because you can see photos of it. And so, yeah, we're looking back at, 50, 60, 70-year-old photos and black and white photos.
Oh, wow.
And so that's been really interesting sometimes is you pull up a photo from one of those earlier built dams and to see the equipment they have and what they were able to build. It's kind of mind blowing sometimes.
Yeah. That is kind of interesting because you don't I, it's just amazing to me. You can look at a snapshot in time,
Mhm.
look at that photograph, and pick out potential areas of like I caught that. So when you're looking at those previous reports, that helps you prioritize what you want to look at first or what you think is
hmm
really important that you look at
Yeah.
based on previous discrepancies or things that they noted or
Yeah. Like,
were unable to really.
yeah. And historical seepage, like if there's an area that, which this isn't really on the structure side, but if there's an area of the dam that this area is always wet whenever the
Mhm.
pool gets above X elevation, that's something that, on that 2 or 3 days that we're on our site visit, it could be
Right.
dry or it could be, it could have just rained the week before. And so everywhere is a little bit wet. And
Mhm.
so it takes looking through the past reports and then talking with the operations personnel that are on site, day in and day out and saying, okay, higher pools, are you seeing this? Is this area always wet? Is it just, after it rains, it holds some surface water? Or is it like, in the middle of June, July, is this wet? Because that's more indicative there could be a little bit of a problem there because where's that water coming from?
Even though you grew up in Oklahoma, you
Mm.
grew up in Stillwater, went to school at Oklahoma State. Did you know that did you know about how many structures we had in the district, and or was it a surprise to you that?
No, it's definitely a surprise, and just, like, the fact that Tulsa District covers into, the southern part of Kansas and the northern part of Texas, like, I mean, that's just something that I never would have known, and I didn't know, like, how lakes were organized. It was just like, "Oh, this is a core lake here, this is a core lake there," and I'd never really spent the time to think like, "Oh, yeah, those are all, that managed and engineered out of the same location." But I mean, it wouldn't make sense to have, multiple engineers at small lakes. It's like, yeah, of course they're going to be maintained and inspected from one office location is going to have the expertise in house to say, yep, we've got geotechs, we've got geologists, we've got structural guys, we've got, you know, this, that, and the other, and be able to say, yeah, we can pull together a team to come out and look at a dam and hit every aspect and cover every aspect of it.
Is there a dam that's your favorite?
Ooh, I really enjoy all the Kansas projects. I just like sometimes it's a pain to have to drive, 3 hours, 3.5 hours away. But in the Kansas, they keep them really clean. From the inspections I've done, they do a good job at maintaining projects. Which I mean, everywhere does well, but they're just always on top of things. If you point something out, you I've had good confidence in saying, okay, if I point this out as an issue, that the next time I come out, they'll at least have a plan together if they haven't fixed it yet. And so it's
Right.
just, and the people are always very nice, and it's a good relationship, a working relationship with the Kansas projects.
And those southeastern ones are kind of shaded, it seems.
Yeah,
It seems like it. Well, Ian, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and
absolutely.
talk to us, especially as we get through Engineers Week.
Mhm.
And thank you again for sitting down and talking to us and explaining what it's like being a structural engineer and engineering and construction
Yeah,
and at the Tulsa District.
yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for Corpstruction. Corpstruction is a production of the Tulsa District U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Public Affairs Office. This episode of Corpstruction was brought to you by Engineering and Construction. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.